Bioshock Infinite was released on March 26th of 2013. The game is the third in the series of Bioshock games. Rather than taking place underwater like in the first two Bioshock games, the game takes place in the flying city of Columbia. The game is very loosely based around the original two games and can be played without playing the first two. Since its release, the game has sold incredibly well, selling over 4 million copies as of July 2013, just 3 months after the game's release. The version I'm playing for this review is the PC version, which has slightly better graphics than the console releases and shorter load times depending on how powerful your computer is. The plot has you playing a private investigator named Booker DeWitt in the year 1913. In order to pay off his gambling debts, Booker is sent to the flying city of Columbia to retrieve a girl named Elizabeth. Upon arriving in Columbia, the city appears to be a utopia until things quickly go wrong and you find yourself at odds with nearly the entire population of the city. The plot eventually leads you to a bunch of multiverse twists and keeps the plot extremely interesting throughout the entire game. Over the course of the game, you'll see the plot tackle several controversial issues like religion, racism, patriotism, and violence. The plot is easily one of the game's best features. When playing through the game, I was so drawn in I stayed up all night for 11 hours straight and beat the entire game in one sitting. When I was done, I was surprised to see it was almost 12 hours after I'd started playing the night before. The game takes the first-person shooter formula and enhances it quite a bit. Rather than using plasmids as sort of a magic spell ability like in previous Bioshock titles, in this game you're able to obtain vigors, which will give you various abilities from damage to mind control. They enhance the game quite a bit, but I often found myself forgetting to use them, because you only get a limited amount of power to use them, and I always tried to save it. Most of the combat is just done with your standard guns, like in most first-person shooters. Most of the guns feel okay, but compared to many other first-person shooters, they can feel imprecise. Aiming down the barrel of your gun feels a little strange, because rather than using the standard FPS controls that most games use, where the left trigger aims, instead you're hitting the R3 button. This usually made me just hipfire, because aiming with the R3 button just feels so awkward. Near the beginning of the game, you'll be given a melee weapon that you'll use for the rest of the game called the Skyhook. This item allows you to attach onto rails that run around the city and travel quickly between buildings, as well as giving you a melee attack. The melee attack usually feels really satisfying to use, however again the controls are a little awkward, because it has you using the Y button to melee instead of R3, which takes a little time to get used to, and unfortunately forces you to take your finger off the right trigger, making you unable to look around for a moment. The most interesting feature of the gameplay is available after you meet Elizabeth. Scattered throughout the city of Columbia, there are tears into other dimensions or space-times that Elizabeth is able to rip open and bring into your dimension. This gives her the ability to summon health packs, ammo, guns, cover, and turrets. By juggling opening these tears, it can give you a real advantage in combat, and it really adds a lot to the game. Elizabeth is also a great companion character as she never gets in the way or needs to be rescued. Instead, if you're low on ammo or power to use your vigors, she'll help you out by finding them around the level and tossing you whatever you need. She's also able to resurrect you sometimes when you die and can keep you in the fight. One feature that was added to Bioshock Infinite that the original didn't have is the ability to make an arrow appear that shows you the direction you need to go. I've never beaten the original Bioshock because I kept getting frustrated because I would get lost and go in circles, because a lot of Rapture really does look similar. This one little feature fixes that problem completely. The game can also be played completely without using it, however it is helpful to keep you from going in circles. The enemies you fight in this game are really well done. Earlier in the game you'll mostly be dealing with city's cops, however later on in the games you'll see enemies like motorized patriots, which are basically giant robot George Washingtons with miniguns. The game doesn't have the largest cast of enemies, but the way each enemy works and acts differently from each other makes a lot of the enemies memorable and fun to strategize against. While overall the gameplay in this game is good, it often pales in comparison to the intricate plot, creating this weird feeling when you're in action-heavy parts that you kinda just want to get through it and get back to more of the game's plot. This leaves me with a strange question of whether or not this game even needs the gameplay parts. The gameplay is done really well, but so often I just want to get them out of the way to get back to the plot. It's a strange case of a really good game being overshadowed by its amazing plot. Graphically, Bioshock Infinite is sure to stand out among all the games released in the previous generation. Every aspect of the game's graphics pops and creates a wonderful environment to explore. The game blurs realistic graphics with cartoony, non-cel-shaded graphics in a great way, creating some extremely aesthetically pleasing environments and character models.
God only knows what I'd be without you.
The soundtrack in this game is incredible. The game features many 1920s sounding renditions of hit songs throughout the 20th century. They're done really well, and they're nice little Easter eggs to look through throughout the entire game. The rest of the soundtrack is comprised of orchestral music that is dark and moody in tone, adding a lot to many situations. The price for Bioshock Infinite fluctuates somewhat drastically depending on the week you're looking to buy it. Last weekend, it was going for $9 on a Steam sale, but now it's back up to $40 for a new copy for console or PC. According to PriceCharting.com, you should be able to find a used copy for around $20, depending on what console you're looking for it on. Bioshock Infinite is easily one of the best games released in 2013, and even if you only have a small interest in first-person shooters, it's a must-play. The only real issue the game has is sometimes the gameplay should just move out of the way of the plot, because the plot is just too good. It's not often that I'll marathon an entire full-length game, but when I do, it's Bioshock Infinite.
Yeah.